let's talk about the other business that you've started recently, Liquid Lending Solutions. Tell me a little bit about
LLS. 2020.
And so,
what a year.
So let me backtrack here. This isn't just like a softball, because I was an afterthought. So I'm actually curious how all this got started.
Yeah, you were the plus one.
For the listeners, I'm a part of the business. They just decided to. Well, what happened was right before they finalized it, they realized, holy cow, we need a big swinger on the team. We need a big badass, and that's when they brought me in, and then we started the business.
We couldn't figure out who that was, so we called Chris instead.
We had to write it out with crayons for him. And he's like, oh, now I get it. Verbally didn't work.
Thanks, guys.
So Liquid Lending, after a couple of fits and starts with pursuing hard money lending as a business, really more as like a side way to make money. Brandon Tauber and I, my partner with Red Ladder, we'd kicked around doing that, even approached a couple of banks about, could we get a credit line, reloan that money? And they're like, no. See your way out. So we were kind of like, okay, well, I guess that's not going to work. We had thought about doing it basically as a way to make, good interest on extra money we had built up with Red Ladder, with our transactional business. One day, so Colin and I would periodically just grab lunch. So we'd just like impromptu do anything for lunch, and I'll be like, I'll grab lunch and bring it to his office, and we'll just sit there and talk for an hour and eat lunch or whatever, go on a walk. And so I called him one day, I think, if I remember this right, correct my memory here, and I was like, hey, you want me to grab lunch? And he said, yeah, actually, I'm just getting ready for a meeting, but go ahead. And I was like, who are you meeting with? And what are you guys talking about? And he said, well, I'm meeting with Peter about hard money lending. And I was like, interesting. I'm like, mind if I'm a fly on the wall here, because I've talked to Brandon about this. So I grabbed some poke bowls and brought them to your office, and then we sat and talked about starting a hard money lending business. So that was the original way that we basically talked about it, and then kind of fleshed it out a little bit more and just said, okay, who else might make sense to include in on this? And so obviously I reached out to Brandon. Colin reached out to his bro-in-law, or bro for life, I should say.
Thank you.
For Chris. And that's basically how we decided to do this. We all, ponied up some money of our own and then grew it from there.
Yeah, and what I think is interesting is we started it with, I know, so I had some cash sitting around, but you used a line of credit, or that's initially what's in there. And so we found a bunch of different ways of access to the capital and basically an ability to arbitrage.
Yeah, I had, I think, a credit line of about, I don't know, like 300 grand or something like that. So yeah, I tapped into 250 of that as the way to, basically I took an advance off the credit line, which was, I think, 4% at the time, and then used that as the seed capital to start Liquid Lending. So we started with $1 million originally, and then started borrowing private money and then loaning that out, because we grew so quickly, we kept running out of money, because of the network of other investors that we knew that were constantly bringing us, potential deals to lend on.
So explain what LLS does.
So Liquid Lending Solutions is a hard money lender in primarily the Midwest. We have several states that we've done loans in. We're based out of Omaha, Nebraska. We underwrite basically flips and BRRR projects. So buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. So basically people are taking down deals and they either can't or don't have the time to work with a bank or traditional financing methods in order to take a deal down. Or maybe they have capital deployed in a whole bunch of projects and they just need a quick solution. So basically, if you're going to flip a property, you get it under contract, you approach us and you say, hey, I need a $100,000 loan. Here's the deal. And they, describe the deal to you, and they're like, here's what we're buying it for. Here's what we're going to do to it. And here's what it's worth at the end. And then we take a look basically at the scope of work they've got, their experience level, and then we make a decision on whether we're going to fund the deal. But and correct me if I'm wrong here, but we underwrite basically every deal like we're going to be the ones buying it, since we're all real estate investors. And if we don't feel there's enough margin in there, or if it's too big of a risk, then we don't fund it. And we generally recommend that the borrower shouldn't probably do the deal either.
Yeah, I think
because it's not good.
My filter is that we would not lend on a property unless we would want to own it ourselves.
Yep.
Because we'll lend 100%, and that's typically what it is of the acquisition cost or the purchase price. And I remember recently we had somebody approach us and they're like, no, that's fine because the deal was tight. And they're like, well, you can just lend 75% of it. And we're like, no, because unfortunately, we think you're going to go upside down on this deal or at best break even. I would recommend not purchasing it.
Yeah, it's been interesting because it's a dynamic change when you're on the lending side of the table as opposed to the borrower side of the table. But it's been fun, and this has been a crazy growth business for us. Over the last couple of years, I think we've done probably approaching 250 loans, and most of them have been to people we know personally. We've also grown our network to, Des Moines area, Michigan, Illinois, Missouri, Florida. Now we just did a loan there. So it's been fun, and we've met all kinds of new people and really good operators. And that's one thing I've learned, I think, most out of being in the hard money lending business. I would say we probably made some not great decisions in the early on days about loans we should or shouldn't do. We probably took a bigger risk than we should have and we've had a lot of success. I think we probably got bailed out maybe a little bit on from the market on some of these. But I think now it's been fun because we've met some really kick-ass operators that really know what they're doing. They know how to underwrite deals. They have a good system of operations in place and the right people, and that's been fun. Just meeting ballers in other markets.